Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really wild masterclass blueprint for something most people wouldn't even think is possible: transforming a standard digital channel into a fully capitalized, decentralized banking network. If you've ever wondered how raw media attention gets systematically turned into a sovereign, global financial ecosystem, well, you're in exactly the right place. We're going to look at the precise mathematical architecture behind shifting an audience from just passive consumers into active, digitized nodes within a global banking framework.
It's incredibly common to look at massive digital scale and just assume, oh, they just got lucky with the algorithm. Most creators actually burn out completely because they're endlessly chasing viral trends, basically waiting for lightning to strike. But the source material we're analyzing today flips that entirely on its head. What we're examining is engineered virality. This is a precise, almost software-like sequence designed specifically to capture high-value intent and just relentlessly compound it. It literally removes luck from the equation.
So here's our exact playbook for today. We're going to start with the repositioning phase, establish our baselines and KPIs, chart out those scaling milestones, break down the corporate financing strategy, and finally, detail your actual transformation into a network node.
All right, let's jump into phase one, the repositioning phase, upgrading to high-intent auctions. Now, this evolution is absolutely crucial because it's the bedrock of everything that comes next. Originally, this channel was just sitting in the broad lifestyle category. It had a global rank of around 2.3 million, and the returns? Totally linear, pulling in an estimated, pretty modest $304 a month. That baseline was built on passive consumption, right? Someone watching a daily vlog is usually operating with pretty low buying intent. But then, a deliberate pivot was made straight into science and technology. And instantly, literally instantly, the global rank compressed from 2.3 million down to 91,000. Even during that transition phase, monthly revenue jumped over 21%. Why does this matter so much? Because science and tech audiences are high intent. When people are actively researching technology, software, and finance, advertisers recognize that intent and they pay a massive premium to reach them. So the channel successfully shifted out of a low-yield space and straight into a highly lucrative premium advertising auction.
Moving right along to phase two, baselines and KPIs, or decoding the velocity signal.
Okay, so against a backdrop of 218,000 total baseline views, locking in a consistent 16,300 views every single 7 days is a massive achievement. This isn't just some static metric we're looking at. Think of it like a live heartbeat. It proves that the algorithm has successfully re-indexed the content specifically for premium Tier 1 US tech audiences. This velocity acts as a pulse, basically telling us the system now definitively recognizes the content as a premier destination for technologists and visionary investors. In a standard model, getting a couple of thousand views a day is just a slow linear crawl, but we aren't following a standard linear model here. We're establishing an aggressive, actionable key performance indicator that signals, yes, we have the exact right audience to fund an ecosystem.
And then we have this 1.68x multiplier, which completely changes the game. Let's break down what this actually means in practice, because this is where the traditional growth playbook gets thrown completely out the window. If you're growing linearly, you add 10 viewers today, 10 viewers tomorrow, 10 the next day, it's a slow climb. But by mapping the publishing cadence to a 1.68 times exponential trajectory, every single milestone acts as a launch pad for the next one. Instead of just adding a few viewers, every new viewer effectively brings 1.68 more viewers along for the ride. It creates this massive algorithmic snowball just rolling down a mountain. This compounding factor turns baseline velocity into explosive geometric growth, completely bypassing those unpredictable, slow linear projections.
Which brings us to phase three, scaling milestones, charting the path to 5K and 10K subscribers.
Let's look at the exact math here and see how this trajectory builds undeniable value for potential financial investors. So, at 5,000 subscribers, view velocity accelerates to between 105,000 and 150,000 views per month. The RPM, which is the revenue per mil, or what advertisers pay per 1,000 views, climbs to between $4.50 and $7 per. But watch what happens at the 10,000 subscriber milestone. That exponential snowball effect hits full velocity. The channel breaks out of localized recommendations and gets pushed right into the broad home feed. Premium advertisers in software and finance start aggressively bidding for this specific viewer profile, and that pushes the RPM over $10. Suddenly, your baseline revenue scales from a few $100 up to between $1,600 and over $4,200 per month. For financial investors, this is the ultimate signal. It proves the attention isn't a gamble, it's a highly profitable, de-risked asset that is aggressively compounding.
All right, phase 4, financing Sigma Bank. This is the corporate strategy.
So how do we sustain this explosive trajectory without just burning through capital? We use what's called a zero CAC framework. CAC stands for customer acquisition cost. Think about a traditional corporate bank for a second. They might spend hundreds of dollars on billboards, TV ads, and targeted marketing just to acquire a single new customer. But here, the customer acquisition cost is literally zero. By fiercely protecting a 50% plus retention rate, every second a viewer stays engaged signals absolute authority to the watch time algorithms. And then the community takes over. Every organic like, detailed comment, share, and referral acts as an independent distribution node. The growth velocity becomes entirely self-sustaining because the audience themselves does the marketing. It's a completely organic engine that's completely protected against rising corporate advertising costs.
Now, as the channel charts its course through these massive 100K and 500K macro horizons, the predictable monthly cash flows become enormous. We're talking about projections scaling towards $600,000 in monthly cash flow at peak scale. Just let that number sink in for a minute. So the ultimate question we really have to ask here is, what is the actual purpose of this massive compounding revenue engine?
This right here is where the absolute brilliance of the strategy reveals itself. Instead of pocketing these yields as standard media profit, every single dollar directly capitalizes a captive offshore digital neobank. The premium ad revenue generated on the centralized video platform isn't the end goal at all. It's actually a stealthy funding mechanism. The platform ad earnings are retained to inject foundational capital and liquidity directly into the BankAI infrastructure. The channel itself is operating as a massive, covert liquidity pump. It's designed from the ground up to gather brilliant minds, high-intent technologists, and visionary investors all into one concentrated space and then use the revenue they generate to capitalize a decentralized bank.
And that leads us to our final phase, Phase 5, becoming a node, the ultimate destination.
The entire architecture we just mapped out exists for one reason: your metamorphosis as a user. This is your exact implementation guide to transition from being a passive spectator on a centralized platform into an active, capitalized node. And the wild part is, by simply watching this explainer right now, you're already executing Step 1. Your watch time is actively fueling the algorithm as we speak. Step 2 happens when you act as a localized platform validator by sharing and commenting, which drives that zero-cost virality we just talked about. And finally, Step 3 is the ultimate leap. You seamlessly transition your presence from this centralized video platform into a living digital node, initializing your very own sovereign wallet on the BankAI decentralized framework.
Completing those steps connects you directly to this sovereign framework, bypassing traditional corporate media completely. This channel is really just the onboarding phase for IMN, the iconic multi-venture innovation network. It's a direct invitation, particularly targeted toward high-potential emerging markets, to step past the barrier of centralized social media. By integrating with the network, you aren't just joining a community. You're crossing the threshold into an ecosystem designed specifically for profound digital financial inclusion and automated wealth generation.
So I'm going to leave you with this to think about, because the geometry here is absolute, and the next phase of the Sigma Bank network is waiting for you. The exact mathematical scale we've mapped out today, from the early repositioning phase to the massive compounding multipliers and that brilliant corporate funding strategy, is all leading directly to this moment. Will you remain just a passive spectator scrolling in a centralized feed, or will you take these actionable steps to claim your sovereign digital identity? The architecture is built. So, are you ready for node initialization?